Okay, we're ready to go?
We are, Mayor.
Okay, welcome everybody to the February 9th Town Council meeting. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comments are in your packet. We hadn't received anything else.
We have two, Mayor, that's during your time.
Yeah. Okay, the consent agenda. I need a motion.
Agreed. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we adopt the minutes. Shane Park. All right, new business. To amend the charter for High Country Council of Government. That's just really a procedure.
So I'm just digging in on the Shane Park budget amendment. That was what we had originally planned.
Correct.
Okay.
2 years ago.
So are we sitting with this budget amendment then to keep where it was, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
we shifted it.
Okay.
Okay,
Mayor, 6.1 is a request from the High Country Council of Governments. They wanted to change their charter and they asked the town to take a position. And we discussed this with you, I think last month. We prepared an ordinance that adopts the changes that the High Country Council has asked for.
okay. Do we need to take a vote on it?
Yes.
Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Okay, 6.2, Channel Service Planning Group report.
Mayor, I'll start with this. As I had spoken to the council back in October, we had talked about the increase in occupancy. We're calling it continuous occupancy of the town. Specifically over the summer, as you know, I'm doing a little recap, that real estate sales really took off in the town. And we began to see our occupancy rate in short-term rentals approach 80–90%. And now, actually, on the weekends, they've been at 100% for about 6 weeks on the weekends. So I did share with you that I had asked the staff to form a planning group that was chaired by our town planner, Preston Yates, to take a look at what this means for the town if it continues. We had some brief discussion, and I believe some of the council had some reservations about whether this trend would continue. But I promise you report February council meeting, which is what's before you. This is the output report from that planning group. And give you a little background, what we did is we tried to determine what our baseline was, and the baseline turned out to be about 52% continuous occupancy as an average over the year for the town. And as you know, we would have peaks and valleys. Our summer season, we'd see an increase. Winter, obviously, see an increase. But we had those 2 seasons, early spring and early fall before leaf season, where the town would not go dormant, but it would get down below that 50% occupancy. And the town would have an opportunity to catch up, for lack of a better term. Do some projects, quick projects, get some repairs made, things like that. With the pandemic and the unprecedented move from the cities to the high country, we saw that increase dramatically, and it's had an immediate impact on town services. Going forward, we believe, staff believes, this report takes a look at that, on what it would mean to the town if we were at 75% continuous occupancy. And how did we come up with 75%? The data is in the report. We use a culmination of our water use, our solid waste transport. We met with the TDA director, looked at the TDA's rental occupancies, things like that. We looked at police and fire calls over a 3-year period. We went back to 2017, and then we took a look at what we did in 2020. And we came up with a planning perspective of 75% continuous occupancy. Then staff was directed to go back and take a look at if the town was at 75% continuous occupancy over the year, how would that affect their service delivery from their department, if at all? And this report is the culmination of the department director's response to that. It's important to note that I'm not asking you to adopt any of these recommendations. You know, most talk about increasing personnel, increasing equipment and things like that. That comes at a budget time when we get into the details, get down into the weeds. But what I wanted to do was try to get ahead of the curve a little bit and not wait for a year to go by and we realize, we look back and say, you know, we're getting slammed and it's not easing up. In my manager's report, I'll talk a little bit about our where we are in overtime this winter, which is up, and what we're doing with traffic control and things like that. And all that plays into this increase in continuous occupancy of the town. Now again, if this doesn't hold true, we'll be able to update this report as we go forward, as we get into the spring and we see what the occupancy rates are. We look at our water use, we look at our solid waste, and we'll be able to modify this report. But I thought it was important that we at least try to get ahead of the curve a little bit, give you a little planning perspective from your staff on what we think the impact to the town will be if we maintain near this 75% continuous occupancy. So each department that was impacted has given you a summary, and I'm prepared to answer any questions on all the departments going forward. So if you've got any questions, either today or in the future, this is the document that I'd like to refer to as our future planning for increased occupancy.
So my biggest question on all of this is, as well, revenue coming into town. I mean, we've got an increase in people that are here. So is the revenue going through TDA, Chamber of Commerce, or, I mean, are we looking at trying to offset what we have here based on tax revenue? Because I know we have a set base on tax revenue
Correct.
for town. So that was my question.
Okay. Well,
When I was reading through this.
That's a very good question, and there's a couple areas that revenue will be impacted positively by what's occurred. First and foremost, immediately, the 6% occupancy tax is dramatically impacted every month, and you see that in the report from the TDA.
Right.
That money is restricted from what you as a town council and me as a town manager can spend. There's state statute that specifically says what the TDA money can be spent for. I have been meeting with the TDA, I have a meeting with them tomorrow, and we're putting together a shared list of goals and projects. Most came from your retreat, that we can ask the TDA to partner with the town and justify expending those dollars.
Okay.
So those are immediate dollars, and they're quite large. They're in the hundreds of thousands of
Right.
dollars going forward. And if our occupancy stays up, those dollars will exponentially increase to the TDA. But that money, you need to understand, I can't pay police officers overtime
Right.
with it. I can't push snow with it, that type of thing. The next piece of the pie is sales tax revenue. Obviously, with more people in the region, our sales tax is anticipated to increase. Sales taxes, we receive that in arrears, several months in arrears. We will see an increase in sales tax revenue going forward, and we won't discuss the legal issues that we have underway, but we anticipate under the same model we have now, an increase in sales tax, but it's delayed. It's not like the occupancy tax that's reported every 30 days. And lastly, the ad valorem. Because we had such a huge sale of our inventory, and our property values will increase because of that, we need to wait until Watauga and Avery County, predominantly Watauga County, does a reevaluation. And Steve tells me I think that's due in 2022. So when that occurs, the town should see an increase in its property value, and then the elected officials will be offered the opportunity to decide, does the tax rate stay the same and we bring in extra revenue, or do we do something different? So I know that's a long answer, but there's really 3 or 4 revenue streams that are affected by this that we'll need to address going forward.
Okay. Yeah, because my big thing is, if we've got an influx of tourism, then the money that's coming from the tourism should start to offset what we have in sanitation, police department, is what I'm thinking.
Well, where we can, and like I said, we're partnering with the TDA, and I've been meeting with them this week, and I'm repeating myself, but I meet with them tomorrow. And as you know, the TDA is somewhat of an autonomous board, and they have to agree that it's a worthwhile project and it fits within their legal ramifications, or their legal criteria. Those dollars can't be used, though, to do solid waste, to do police protection, repairing the roads and things like that.
So we're set at like a set number then when it comes to sanitation and...
Well, what my plan is, and of course, I don't want to weaken my position in negotiating with the TDA. My plan is to offset some of our one-time costs in our budget that can be attributed to tourism, to free up our general fund to pay for the issues of public safety and sanitation, and that's my goal going forward.
Yeah.
But
Because our 2 big things are public safety and EMS, or, where we're getting to a point where push comes to shove.
But once the budget has been established, there's nothing to offset, correct?
I'm not sure I understand.
I mean, once we establish a budget and say this is going to be our budget for the year,
Yes.
then there's nothing what else is there to offset any cost?
Well, the other revenue streams will begin to pick up as we go through. Sales tax will pick up as we go through the next several months and we get into the budget in July of 2021. That would be an offset. Your property tax values won't increase during that budget period, so that will not be an offset. So when you set the next budget, we'll project those revenues, as we always do, to show you where we'll be. And we'll ask you to prioritize and tell us what you want us to do in the next budget. And I intend to bring everything to you, as I did last year. This is the project, this is how we're going to fund it, would you like us to do it, and if so, we will. And so that will be a discussion of, revenue stream, Councilman. It'll be ad valorem taxes.
Right.
It'll be TDA partnership, sales tax, and other revenues that come in. We'll put that into the budget analysis and then ask you to decide what you want to do.
And that's only if we deem it necessary, if it doesn't slow down, correct?
Oh, well, yeah, well, as with any budget, you tell me, we're gonna send you what you've told us to send you, and then you tell me what you want to
I'm
do.
speaking to your plan you put together with the extra personnel and
This
Chief
plan
Plan.
really is for information. If this comes to fruition and we begin putting things into the next budget or 2, this might be 2 budgets out. The council then is you decide what we're to do. And what this plan was for was to give you information on what we see the impact of the increased occupancy of the town.
yes, sir.
That's what it's for. It's not to generate you to say you hire a police officer or do something with Parks and Rec or
Yes,
something
sir.
like that. It's simply information of what your staff has told you. If, in their opinion, if we continue with the occupancy, this is how it
This
will.
trend continues.
Correct.
Okay, correct.
So is
Got it.
this possibly like a one-year plan to kind of see what happens after
Could be a
the
2 year.
pandemic?
Could
You
be 2
know,
years.
it could
Well,
be 2 years.
It's adjustable.
Well, yeah, I think the flexibility is the key. As we go through this period of time, the mayor's correct, it's probably multi-year as we'll update it. We have the base report, and as we see
Right.
from our matrix on how we're measuring occupancy, if we're off the mark, we'll adjust it up or down.
Okay.
And we'll bring those recommendations to council during budget process.
Okay.
And I will keep you updated, quarterly, I guess, as we go forward.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Back under, first of all, I think if we continue the way we're going, I think the things that are being asked for in planning considerations are reasonable. If we continue with the trends that we're seeing. Under the fire department, the dedicated ALS ambulance shared cost with existing systems. Is that with like Avery, other counties?
Yes, ma'am. Actually,
Okay.
I've got that in my manager's report, but I'll do
Okay.
it now. No.
No, we're okay.
We talked at the
Okay.
retreat about advanced emergency medical transport.
Right.
In increasing the service delivery to the mountain.
Right,
So this refers to the several models that we could do. The most cost-effective and the most, in my opinion, the best way to attack this is to increase the existing service delivery model. So that means with Avery County. So I've reached out to Avery County, and I've asked to start dialogue with them. If the town would be willing to contribute to an increase in their ALS, Advanced Life Support System, and put additional resources in or near Beach Mountain, what would that look like? And I haven't gotten too far, but I also reached out to Watauga County, and I met with Watauga County, and we discussed this similar thing. The next more difficult piece and a little bit more expensive is to go to Watauga County's private contractor and contract for a unit to be in or near Beach Mountain.
okay.
And then the third one that's in the report is if the town decides to do it themselves. That's the most costly, that is the most difficult to put together, and that has the most long-term budgetary effects in the town. So we've produced 3 options, and we're working all 3 right now. Quite frankly, the one for the town is just on paper right now. We haven't made any.
But there's a need for it. I mean, we've
Well,
seen,
there is, I believe there is. I live it firsthand every day.
I was gonna say, I'm sure,
So does this
Other
include
council members.
the possibility of Eagle's Nest coming through Beach Mountain, or is this not including?
It does not include any unincorporated areas of the town.
Okay,
It doesn't include any possible annexation of other areas.
okay,
This is strictly based on our water usage and sanitation tonnage, and as the data in the tables reflect, on getting to that 75% continuous occupancy.
so we could see these numbers change,
Yes, oh yeah.
Okay.
As
because they're all septic, right? Eagle's
they
Nest
are.
is septic,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
and my other question was, Recreation had asked for, or requested a couple pieces of equipment. Do we have things already in-house? Do we have equipment of this nature? Are they asking for their own?
Well, this is a planning consideration of
Right.
the Parks and Rec Department.
Right,
So they're not requesting this at this time.
Right.
It would be in a budgetary request at some point in time.
right,
We don't currently have that piece of equipment.
okay,
We currently have a mini skid steer that they do trail work with.
okay,
And his planning consideration that he's referring to, I believe you're referring to, is on page 16 of the report, 149 of the agenda.
right.
He's asking, he says there would need to be a mini excavator, and an additional employee to help do some of the work,
Right.
out in the field.
Right.
Um,
So it's something that we are, as a town, don't already have?
We do not.
Okay, okay. That was all I had.
Okay.
This is great report, thank you.
It is.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And I understand that this is just planning, but to add to what Aaron said, you know, when they have on here that the savings will come from being able to do work in-house, you know, my question is going to be, well, how much money has been spent, you know, with contractors, and just making sure that what the rec department does, along with all the other departments. Well, no, I'm going to use the rec department for an example, because the other departments isn't applicable to this next statement. And that is that we make money, you know, programs that we aren't even coming close to breaking even. We look at, you know, how can we make money, or do we need to get rid of these programs? What programs can make us some money? And I had a mother tell me yesterday that it would be nice if we had some daycare on Beach Mountain, you know, like the CMO, the Children's Morning Out, a couple days a week or a couple nights a week. And I don't know if that's possible for the rec center to get into daycare, and if there's any legalities.
The club does that.
What's that?
The club does it, Friday nights.
So if there's any legalities that would prevent you from that, but, you know, look at ways at how we can potentially make some money on some programs. And if we don't have daycare on the mountain, we have a lot more families. And I think some of these families that express some interest to our vice mayor about some transportation in some other areas, and just carrying it one step further with something to be, you know, a little bit more friendlier towards the parents, to give them some time so that they don't have to maybe go to Banner Elk. I know the First Presbyterian Church offers some CMO.
Right.
But
Well, Councilman, the answer to your question is anything is, we can do anything. It comes down to dollars.
Right.
And people to do it. When I met with staff, and staff talked about this every Monday for months on staff meeting, and we've worked this planning document. I asked them exactly what I told you, take a look at what to provide the existing services going forward at an increased continuous occupancy. What I didn't ask them to do was, you know, brainstorm and come up with what would you like to see, or, you know, I kind of relied upon the council to do that at retreat time, to tell me, you know, where you want us to go. Quite frankly, we can do anything you want to do, and anything the community wants to do. And, you know, I told you a while back that the key is finding a way to yes. We're at a point, however, let me clarify that. We're at a point, however, in my opinion, that the service we are providing is starting to decline because of the amount of service that's being required, and we're using the same amount of people and staff. This winter is a good example. You know, the crews have done a phenomenal job, the outside crews, public safety, public works. But I've got some people who are working overtime every weekend for not just a few hours, plowing snow, laying down salt. I've got supervisors I've called in to run trucks. I've got department heads running trucks. They're tired. So when I say we can do anything, we can, we will, but we're at a point right now, particularly this winter, that we're exceeding our ability to do it well all the time. And I hate to tell you that, but that's where we're at. We're being asked to do a little bit more than we can do well all the time.
So as far as emergency services, where are we? Because I know that was part of our retreat, was talking about EMS.
It's a priority. It's number 4.
Okay. Are we still like hitting that goal, or is this kind of?
We're moving ahead.
Okay.
As I shared a little bit ago, we're negotiating preliminarily with Avery and Watauga, with a backup plan in our pocket that we do it ourselves. So
Okay.
the best model, in my opinion, would be to incrementally increase the Avery model, the Avery system that we already are part of, and enhance that would be the most cost effective, and I think would benefit the town the most.
Okay.
Also,
you.
there's so much limit that the town itself can do. Some of the stuff that people want, I mean, the private sector has to really take care of it.
Correct.
I mean, the town is not in the daycare business.
Correct.
The town is not in the transportation business. We're here to run the town. So, private sector, if there's a need, private sector would be involved in it, not the town. There's so much the town can do. I mean, we're here to administrate the town and not, I mean, yeah, I'd like to have my driveway cleaned every week too, but, you know, that's a private sector issue. Daycare is a private sector issue. It's not a town issue. Public transportation, if somebody wants to run a cart, you know, up and down the mountain, that's a private industry. It's got nothing to do with the town. Plus the liability that the town would be involved with is tremendous. So, I mean, everybody's got great ideas and people want us to do, but we have to separate between private sector and town. That's my opinion.
Well, I agree, Mayor, and I think to get to yes, the town can facilitate the private sector, you know, coming in and doing that. We can reach out, we can go find someone who wants to do that. We may lease them, you know, spot at the rec center or something like that. I didn't mean to say that we have to do it all. You know, I don't want to be in the daycare business. I did my daycare. I'm an old guy now.
I think you're still doing it.
Been there, done that.
But I think
You got 45 other people that you gotta daycare.
yeah, but I think the town can work to facilitate something
Correct.
and reach out.
Correct.
And make it more advantageous for the private sector to do that.
And that's the same with economic development. That could be part of the whole the whole development sector that they can get involved with also.
Correct.
And I know that in your proposal, if you read through it, you know, there's, helping people with property leases and stuff like that, which I think is very, very helpful. And that can enhance some of the private sector.
Right.
But this is stuff that we can help, but it's for them to handle it.
Well, this is a great report, and I think,
It's so
putting
detailed.
it on the record, if anybody wants to come and read through this to really understand what's happening right now with Beach Mountain, I think it's a great report.
Well, this whole thing is, just so you know, all this is online.
Yeah.
So somebody can read it all they want.
Yes.
Chief, I want to go back to when you mentioned a while ago about the road maintenance, and I spoke to a couple employees from Public Works that were out spreading salt and pushing snow. I know they're tired. I know they're working a lot of hours, but, and you mentioned the overtime. I mean, with the work that the road crews are doing isn't due to the amount of people that are coming up to Beach Mountain. It's weather related.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, looking at that, we can take a snapshot of what we did, you know, when the budget comes to us for Public Works. You know, we can take a look at the overtime that Public Works, you know, maybe 2 years ago, what they worked last year, and then with the weather patterns and what they were then and what they are now, and look at, you know, do we need to hire a few more people for Public Works? Or is this just a cyclical cycle, and then next year it'll go back to normal?
Well, it depends on what normal is. If you can tell me what normal is, I can budget for it. It's not just Public Works. They're the ones that are bearing the brunt, because it takes a lot of people to do it over a period of time, and it's happening every Friday, Saturday, Sunday when they've already worked 40 hours, so my overtime costs are up. But it's also police, public safety, and it's directly related to the number of people who are here. I can't tell you how many vehicle accidents, I could get it from the chief, but I'm telling you that anecdotally from my side of the fence, there's been, you know, multiples of 10 of vehicle accidents every time we have an influx of folks and we have any bit of weather. So my police officers, my overtime costs are going up there because I've had to add extra police officers on the weekend. Every time there's an accident, a Public Works truck is dispatched from whatever they're doing on plowing someone's road to go to the accident and lay sand or salt to help clear the accident. And what's been happening is that, I'll take the Parkway, which isn't even the town's responsibility, has 5 or 6 vehicles in an accident down from Tamarack. The police go and clear it, the fire department's there, Public Works is there. Almost before they leave the scene, there's 4 more vehicles in the ditch or in the accident. So it's broader than just adding people in Public Works. It's a systematic issue that we're trying to address with this report. Ultimately, overtime costs many times are less expensive, less costly, more efficient than hiring full-time people. You have that break point on the dollars, but you also have the break point on wearing your folks out. And my folks, your folks, our folks, they're worn out.
Stretched right now as far as they can be.
And we're taking sanitation people and pushing snow. I'm taking the mechanic who should be repairing the stuff that's breaking down, and he's putting salt down. So I just want you to know that, and I know you do, that with the weather that we've had every weekend, and the increase in population, it's having an impact on our budget and on our staff.
Okay, I think we've pretty much beat that up.
I think so, yeah.
All right, okay, your report, Bob?
Well, let's go do the financial report first. I asked Steve to stay tonight in case you had any questions. My report is that we're at 50% benchmark on the report. You'll see that, as we talk about every month, where the departments are coming more in line. I'll direct your attention to page 1 of the report. For the general fund, all the way down to the bottom, recreation is
Right.
at 91.47%.
Well, you beat me to it.
The Shane Park budget amendment you passed tonight on the consent will bring that number back in line.
Okay,
Those dollars were not budgeted and they were charged to recreation. So that's a perfect example of how we needed to show the expenditures as we've been doing for the last year, and then correcting it when the project is done. Let's see, some of the ones that are over. Fire department, that again is the grants. If you'll compare that to the last couple months, it's been coming in line.
what's the planning board? Why is the?
Planning is the Greenway. We'll produce another budget amendment similar to Shane Park to close out the Greenway, the side path, whatever you call it over there. And that will bring planning into line.
Chief, I got a question, and I screwed up earlier because I wanted to ask a couple questions. You mentioned Shane Park just a second ago, but I probably had 10 or 12 questions that I already had answered, but I wanted some other folks to hear there's a lot of numbers in here, and some of it had to do with the audit. But I wanted to take off what we approved and ask a couple questions. And I'm not going to now, but since you mentioned Shane Park, I do have a question. When you said that with Shane Park, that the funds are allocated when the project is done, is that what you just said a moment ago? So, I mean, why are we just now?
They were allocated, they weren't budgeted.
Okay,
When
I
Shane
misspoke.
When Shane Park, I believe it was a previous council,
Correct.
when Shane Park was funded at $200,000, it wasn't budgeted. And so we inherited Shane Park last year about December time, and there was an appropriation of $200,000 from the town, plus all the donations, but it was never budgeted. So we built the park, and this is the final accounting of the town project, and now we put it into the budget, and it's no more money. In fact, there's $13,000 left over to the good. We were under budget by $13,000. So now, instead of recreation paying for that $200 plus $300,000 out of their budget, which they didn't have budgeted, that's why their numbers are skewed. We've now corrected it with a budget amendment. It's no additional funds. It's simply accounting for the project at the end.
So this is not the donations
It
that
is.
came
No.
through. This is what we as council
It
approved.
includes the
to-
donation.
It's what the previous council committed to.
Okay,
If you'll go back to that item, you'll see that there was $200,000 from the town, 50,000 from the TDA. I'm doing this from memory, $138,000 donations. So we
Okay,
put that together in that budget adjustment amendment, and we show a balance, fund balance of 13,000
Okay.
and change.
so that hits recreation, that's the recreation budget?
Well, now
As
the
far as
recreation
what I'm looking
budget,
through here?
next month, your recreation budget won't be at 93%.
91.
Okay.
91.47%.
So once that rolls through, then it'll move
Then
it back
it'll
down
bring
again?
that more in line with the
Okay.
benchmark.
Okay,
So I need clarity on this, just regardless if you, whatever project, if you use Shane Park, whatever project that we may be doing, where the money was appropriated, is the money appropriated and then put in the budget, or should it have been in the budget to begin with? And I'm just speaking in general,
Well, you're asking an opinion of mine.
okay? May I have your opinion?
Should have been in the budget.
Well, I thought so, but I just,
okay,
But it wasn't, and you and I now have the task of reconciling the funds.
correct.
So this is how we do it correctly, legally, and so that the next auditor who gives you a report doesn't come and tell you that, you know, we spent these dollars outside the budget.
okay.
That's the word I was looking for the appropriate word, and what this is, this budget amendment is a reconciliation from what occurred last year, 2 years ago.
Yes.
The
Okay.
problem is it keeps hitting recreation, which, you know,
Well, and you can
And
expect to
which
see the
hurts.
same thing with the greenway or side path, or whatever we call it these days. That is completed. We're finishing up the reconciliation of it, and we'll bring that to you so that the planning department doesn't show a unusual expenditure that you didn't budget. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So at
Yeah,
the end of the day, we're better, more accurately accounting for how we spent the money, as opposed to it just being, you know, oh, we spent this on Shane Park, or we're accounting for the dollars, and being as transparent as we possibly can, to you and the taxpayers on where their money went.
so my last question on this was the miscellaneous income? Is that,
Yeah, that's always a question.
That's a flush fund.
it's always
They,
the
they,
question.
they throw everything in there.
Anything that we don't know where.
Where
put
it goes, okay,
Goes into miscellaneous, and
Okay.
Steve can give you a list, but there's a number of where we get income. We sell something, we get, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not gonna go down the list, because I'm gonna be wrong, but.
I'm not gonna go down that
it's-
rabbit hole,
it's-
but that
it's all the
was
things
my
we
only
can't fit
question.
into another incomes category.
Whatever we don't have an account for,
Yeah.
It
goes
goes
into
into
miscellaneous.
miscellaneous, okay, gotcha. I think that was my only questions.
I asked that question, I think, two meetings ago, and I think part of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of that miscellaneous income has something to do with sanitation.
Well, only in the sanitation fund. The sanitation fund is an enterprise fund. so
That's correct.
What you're seeing in miscellaneous income, and I don't have it in front of me,
That's-
but
that's
it's
fine.
200 and some $1,000.
Right?
That is just general fund. We do have miscellaneous income in the other funds. It's not near that big.
I think that's
could
my
be
only
anything. I mean,
questions.
they can sell a T-shirt. It goes into
Miscellaneous
It goes
income.
into miscellaneous.
Correct. All right, let's finish up financial report. Any more questions on that? Because I think that's important that we go through that every month. I hope you feel it is. I've given you the staff reports. I'm going to touch base here on the TDA. I'll do that first. Particularly the mayor, but most of the council have continuously asked about economic development. We have the TDA, and then we have economic development. The position is hyphenated, it's twofold, two tasks. And last month, we sent you a short report on economic development. and I promised you this month we would have a more in-depth report. So this business expansion and attraction toolbox was developed by our economic development coordinator and her staff, and we put this together. This is it's not a wish list. This is some of the things we can do. And what I asked the group to do was, get excited, come up with how we're going to attract business and grow the town economically. And this is the final report that they put together for you. This is another living document, and we're going to adjust this to be obviously legal and figure a way that the town attorney has come up with some good advice on how to accomplish the same goal, maybe in a different manner. But what I wanted you to see on this, we call it the BEAT, the B-E-A-T, Business Expansion Attraction Toolbox. What I wanted to show you is that we are working on economic development. We do have a framework and a plan. And some of these things may not come to fruition, particularly the fact that we have very little commercial property that we control. But we're working this, and from time to time, you will see an update on this report in the TDA's report to you. And certainly, anytime you have a question or you have something you want me to include in this, we will. But this was the output of that request, predominantly by the mayor, but the rest of the council had also shown an interest in that.
Chief, I got a question. You said that the town's got has a limited amount of commercial property. With the other commercial property that's available on Beach Mountain, whether it's for sale or not for sale, is it still being marketed by EDC
Yes.
or TDA?
Yeah. We obviously control our property 100% with the legal restraints that the town attorney has given me. But that doesn't mean that we can't attract business to other private property, either for purchase or for lease. So what we've done is we've produced a map of what we own and what we control. The TDA and the Economic Development Coordinator has also been working on private property that's commercially developed. And you may remember that I've reported to you, and she has reported to you through me, about the blue building on Cat's Curve. Well, that's closed now, and we can announce that. And the town was instrumental in that deal coming to fruition, meeting with the potential buyer, going over some of the zoning issues, going over some of the things that could be done there. And some of these items in this toolbox, we were able to offer in going forward, mostly expediting permitting, expediting the bureaucracy of government is a big benefit to a developer. So to answer your question, long answer, I'm sorry. Yes, we are marketing everything we possibly can to get the business that we want in the town.
Another question.
So this is based on resources and all that kind of stuff, water resources, sanitation resources. The whole business expansion part is also including human resources up here on beach to be able to handle
Yes, ma'am.
what we have going on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Another question, Chief. So on
A lot of property.
the list of parcels, where I'm assuming that the last one, this page 196,
Okay.
the last, well, it looks like the only commercial property that Beach Mountain, that the town owns. I'm assuming this is across the street from Fred's.
That's correct.
Is that property for sale?
Everything the town owns is for sale. I'll sell it.
Okay.
I love it.
We,
That's awesome.
we brought you a parcel last month for $10,800 that you approved. We sold that on Gov Deals, and did much better than we expected to. So if someone is interested, we're interested, and we'll bring it to you. I mean, the council decides whether we sell it or not, but there's nothing on this list that's not for sale. From my perspective, I mean, I'll bring the deal to you, and you decide if it's ultimately for sale, but it's not gonna be held at the town manager's level. All right, any more questions on that? All right. The COVID-19 update, we've been getting a number of calls from the community regarding a town vaccination clinic. And I want you and the community to know that we've been working with Avery and Watauga counties to make that happen. We've kind of got stalled because the lack of vaccine has thrown those plans back a little bit. But I'm confident that as the vaccine distribution increases, that we'll be able to put a vaccine clinic here on Beach Mountain. And of course, we'll notify the public and make that happen. On the retreat, the budget retreat update, first I want to thank the council for providing direction on the upcoming budget. That's imperative for me to be able to produce a budget that you want to see. So I don't know from your perspective, but from my perspective, the time spent at that retreat was invaluable to me. We've begun developing a budget based upon your 5 priorities, and those were infrastructure, solid waste, facilities, emergency medical services, and the playground. I told you about EMS, so I won't go over with that. I told you that we're producing a budget with costs and options for the council to decide what you want to fund in the budget, so you should see that coming forward. And a number of the issues we discussed at the retreat that I took notes on, we're going to deal with those now. We're waiting for some weather to break, but there were some fencing issues that were brought up. There was a number of issues that don't need to wait for a budget, and I've met with all the staff that's involved, and we're actively working that now. On solid waste, which was our number 2 priority, we've begun working that, and it is complicated and it is expensive. And I don't want to do a lot of work and a lot of planning to have the council say, no, that's not the direction we want to go in. And there's a number of decisions that need to be made up front so that we can get into the details. And I'd like to know if the council or mayor, if you would like, I need about an hour and a half to bring Daniel Davis in and myself and Steve to start laying out some of the decisions that need to be made. Do you want me to schedule that for a lengthy discussion at the March meeting, which would be timing okay with me, or do you want to have a workshop to do it? And how do you want to handle that solid waste
I think
issue?
March meeting works.
Well, I don't know, I was thinking maybe a workshop, these council meetings can last forever, so another hour, this can take an hour depending on what's on the agenda,
Sure.
plus another an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I think we should make a workshop. We can all, either in the morning or in the afternoon, whichever is convenient. And let's just go through it, get, one way or the other.
I'm fine either way. I need about 90 minutes of your time so we can discuss
So
only
what
solid
would you
waste.
prefer, morning or afternoon?
I prefer afternoon, so I don't have to
Okay.
burn a full day at work.
What time would you consider?
2 o'clock?
Sure.
2 o'clock okay for everybody?
It's good with me.
You have a date?
Yeah, it's in between.
Middle of the week, I
Lunch.
Wednesday
Yeah.
or whatever,
can't do Friday.
next Wednesday?
Maybe do it on Thursday,
Okay, next Thursday?
Thursday works.
next Thursday?
Cameron, do you have your calendar?
I
Do
do.
we have a conflict next?
So the
Well,
March meeting is,
No, not March meeting, next
is
Thursday.
not, I just say the regular night.
we need to advertise it, so we need to back up from that advertising date.
In March, not at the March meeting, but just to get through.
So we're looking at the 9th?
The 9th is the March meeting.
Oh,
That's your regular, that's all I was letting you know.
16th?
Well,
How does the 25th look to everybody?
Of what?
It's a Thursday
25th of what?
of February.
That works for me.
It's a Thursday, the 25th at 2 o'clock.
Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
Aaron?
That'll be fine.
Kelly?
Yep, works for me.
Wagner?
So moved.
So, all approved.
Okay, the town clerk shook her head, so she'll get the notification out so we can have a meeting. And it'll be 2 o'clock here on the 25th of February, and we'll deal with solid waste. Thanks. Okay, the Lake Coffee Reservoir, we're progressing with the preliminary engineering so we can get projected costs, and we're investigating permitting. And we're placing this project into the water models and the debt model to see where we're going to be. I still don't have an estimate on cost, but it appears, particularly after we talked about it at the retreat, that it's doable. Hopefully it's cost effective, and we'll be able to have much more information for you as we go forward, but I want to let you know that we're progressing on that.
Chief, I got a question on this. Who is, like you, are the same engineers that were working on Watauga intake, are they working on this project as well?
That's my plan, yes. Yeah.
And where is that in the, working on Watauga intake? Does that then put that out? Or does that then, it doesn't? Okay,
Well, again, it comes down to dollars and cents.
okay,
Well, the Watauga has been estimated at $20 million.
okay,
And I told you last month on the Lake Coffee that it could be half that, $10 million. Well, we don't have $30 million to go do both. So if Lake Coffee comes to fruition, it doesn't solve all the problems. It makes them a lot better and puts a lot of things off.
okay,
It doesn't replace the Watauga. It may put it off down the road where it's necessary, but it certainly doesn't replace it.
okay,
And as I told you, as we construct wells that are fruitful, that we can tie those in, and maybe Lake Coffee, there may be quite a bit of years, but it does not give us a secondary source of water, and it does not give us more than 30 million gallons of drought protection.
okay. So this at least will help with the Watauga intake. I mean, as
Yeah.
another step toward.
Well, if nothing, let's say engineering wise or permitting wise, it falls through. We've checked the box on
Okay.
that one.
Okay,
I think preliminary information that I've received, this is a doable project. And I think it's probably more cost effective than the Watauga. I've shared with you on the Watauga, it's not so much the cost of building it, it's the cost of operating it per gallon.
right,
Lake Coffee Reservoir is less money to build and substantially less money to operate
okay,
going forward. So I think it's a doable project. I think it deserves a lot of effort and some dollars to see where we end up, but it doesn't replace the Watauga. It may put it off.
It delays Watauga.
Yeah, and depending on how it puts together, it may delay it quite a bit.
okay,
So
It could stretch it another 10 years.
yeah, perfect.
when, during drought conditions, how much water do we need on a daily basis, on the average, do we need on a daily basis?
Well, these numbers are gonna get me in trouble because it's a public meeting. We average about 500,000 gallons a day. When we go into drought conditions, depending on the conditions, our ordinance requires reductions. Some are voluntary, some are mandatory. And in 2010-11, when we went into the severe drought, we were down into the less than 200,000 gallons a day.
But coffee doesn't require the release of the water, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's
So,
just Buckeye that
what I'd like to
requires
do
the release of the
is
water.
have Daniel give you those numbers exactly. It's in Benji's report, which I don't have in front of me, and I shouldn't give you numbers that I don't have in front of me, but in round numbers, that's what we're looking at. So
Well-
as the drought progresses, we restrict usage, and we can get down 250,000 gallons a day.
How many gallons does a water tower hold?
They're various sizes. I think the littlest one is 67,000, and the biggest one is 300,000.
Well, the one thing, like you said, about Lake Coffee is we don't have to release any water.
Correct.
Yeah, I think this project, if it, provided that it makes financial sense, and just peeling a couple layers back in what we've initially heard, it does. It's cool. Right now, current water source is, at Buckeye is 34 34 million gallons.
35 million.
35 million. And then this project here is going to give us equivalent to what we have.
30 million.
30 million. I mean, that's substantial.
It is, it meets our projected 60-day drought window.
Right?
We have a 60-day drought window that we projected for the Watauga. And so this 30 million gallons would meet that projected 60-day drought window. It's in a different watershed, but it is surface water, and it's not a, quote, secondary source of water. The benefit, I believe, is that the cost to use it.
So the whole point is just coming back now with the cost on trying to make it happen.
Well, we've got to finish some preliminary engineering to get it to the state to see if it's permittable. Obviously, if the state gives us a hard time, we need to figure out how to get it permitted. Everything preliminarily looks good, but we're not there yet. And then once we get it to a point where we think it can be permitted, we'll be able to do a cost analysis
Okay.
on what it will take to build it. And then, of course, I want an operational model, so I know what it costs every year going forward, because that's the key. We can borrow the money and pay the
Yeah.
debt service, but if you've got to spend $1 million a year to get the water, it's, you need to figure that.
So one last question, Chief. So you mentioned how expensive it would be with the Watauga intake project to operate it. What's the difference in operating Watauga intake versus operating this? Because we're currently using our
We'll both go to the water plant. So if you will take the water plant as the point of beginning or end. So the Watauga, we have to pump it up the mountain into the water plant to treat it and put it into our system. And the energy cost to move the water from the Watauga up the mountain is high. Particularly in a system that we wouldn't use because of the cost unless we had a drought, unless we needed the water. So for those projected 60 days per year that we would turn the switch, so to speak, for the Watauga, that per gallon cost is high. On Lake Coffee, it's the opposite. Lake Coffee sits above the water plant. It's higher than the water plant. We do have a ridge, and we would have to pump the water out of Coffee over the ridge, gravity down to the water plant. Forget the initial cost. The operation of it is a relatively easy, small, energy efficient pump station to get the water out of the reservoir down to the water plant. Once it's at the water plant, we're at the same cost factor. So if I use Lake Coffee for the same 60-day drought conditions, the energy costs alone to get the water from the reservoir to the water plant are many multiples less than the Watauga. So going forward, that's a consideration that other town councils are going to have to deal with, because ultimately our residents pay that water rate to get the water to the water plant.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does, and from a financial standpoint, I hope this project goes through, just from a preliminary standpoint, because with all the millions of dollars that we need to put in infrastructure, and I'm just speaking hypothetical, let's say that this Watauga intake is going to be 20 million, this other project is going to be 10 million, and until we had this potential opportunity with Coffee and Santas, we were moving forward to spend $20 million. So now, we've got $10 million that we can potentially apply, maybe in smaller increments, so that, our debt ratio to income doesn't get out of balance. But I think it's going to free up some monies that we can apply to some other well-needed infrastructure projects.
Well, we hope so.
Agreed.
Hope so.
We hope so, but we're not to a point yet where I can tell you which way to go.
Yes, sir.
I can tell you it will not replace the secondary water source. The wells may do that, and actually that's my next item. Wells, the Pinnacle Ridge site, we're waiting for a break in the weather to do the drawdown test and engineering. We've got that ready to go, the road's in. The Palm Creek site, we're waiting on the weather again. We've got to build an access road to that well site. We'll drill it and see what we pull up. I'm going to budget in the utility budget this year another site. to see if we can, we're at 50% now, we're at 50/50. So by the time we drill the Pond Creek site, we'll know if it's good or dry. But we're gonna put another site in the budget that you can pull out if you need to.
And who picked the site out?
Engineer?
The guy with the two rods
Yeah.
that walks through the woods.
And the Indian?
Piece of wood, oh, that way.
I don't understand that, I don't believe it, but
That's
They're-
actually true.
they're
So,
right.
yeah, so,
They're right.
okay.
well, no, they look at the rock structure underneath, they look at the watershed, but there is a guy with a divining rod,
Really?
and he
Okay.
said, drill your well here, and they did, and there was water.
And the
Now, he
third
also
one?
said, drill your well over here, and we did, and there wasn't any water, so he's just.
And the third one is because to help with the Watauga intake, or is this just now
Well, no, if we can. if-
possibly we could find another water
We
source
think.
up here?
We think the Pinnacle Ridge site will give us 150,000 gallons a day.
Okay,
Wow.
So that's pretty good, and we can
Yeah.
put it right into the system as opposed to into the plant. Our operational costs are low after we build it. So that's, we just picked up maybe 150,000 gallons a
Okay.
day. The Pond Creek site, let's assume that it comes in similar. Now we're at maybe 300,000 gallons a day.
right on. Okay,
So we're, until we run out of good reasons to drill a well, I think it's money well spent.
okay,
If we come up dry again and we're down to 33%, then we need to reevaluate and say, we were lucky 1 out of 3 times, we're done. But we'll bring that to you during budget.
okay.
Public Works, the building, it's progressing well. We've got all the works being done inside due to the weather. The interior construction is well underway. All the materials are there. The lifts, the wash bay, they've got drywall up. The electricians are finishing up. But weather's been a factor over there. But we have no critical path issues that are preventing us from bringing that project into fruition. I talked about financial, talked about town occupancy, the town's 40th birthday celebration. Sandy Carr dropped off the cookies. We know where they came from. They're very good. And they've got a website now at www.beachmountain.com/40th, and to lay out some of their unique offerings for the year-round celebration for our 40th birthday. And Mr. Mayor, I'm done.
Okay?
Thank you.
Chief, I have a question on trash compactors. Will we test them out before we go live with the new sanitation building?
Test to see if they work? Yes. Oh, yeah. There's a contractor's test that has to be performed.
Awesome.
We're now testing them out, whether, we can get the cars to them and the garbage in them. We'll have to run, I think, to answer your question, yes, everything in that building, in that complex gets tested, gets signed off, the engineer and us. Riley Hatch is my on-site person. He's there every day, and he'll witness that. I'll go over and witness the fire sprinkler system. But I've also talked to our Daniel and Matthew over there at Public Works. We're gonna probably run concurrently 2 trash centers until we figure out how that one's gonna work.
Sure.
What I can't do is shut the gate on one and find out that, there's a tremendous problem that we didn't foresee at the other one. So that'll be this summer. And that's actually one of the things I need to talk to you about at the workshop is what our plan is going forward and how we want to make this work.
Have they moved the compactors so they can get open the chute, or not yet?
No, they're moving the door, they're rehinging the door. The door goes to the other side. No, that hasn't been done. And at your request, we're putting longer hoods on the control box
Because I'm very concerned about that.
to cover those. That has not been done. And I was just out there with Daniel and Matthew, and we're in our mind going through the operation. And currently, winter weather has been terrible this year. But we expect our attendant to be out there, meet your car, take your garbage, put it in the compactor. There's no protection from the weather standing out there for 12 hours a day. So we're trying to figure out how that process is going to work. So we haven't figured that out yet, but we're trying to foresee as many problems as possible before we open up. But I think my recommendation is we're gonna run both concurrently until we work out the bugs, and then figure out what to do with the existing.
Okay. Kelly, any comments?
Just wanted to bring to everybody's attention again, page 166 of 200 in our town council packet. This business expansion is great for everyday people up here full-time, part-time, to really read through. My next comment is if you buy a barricade, you put the trash inside the barricade. You don't put it in front of the barricade. So if you don't want to get a fine, just go ahead and put it inside the actual metal garbage can that you've purchased. And that's it.
Mr. Abernathy?
I'd like to thank Steve for his input today. He did a great job.
I made him stay.
That's brutal back there. No comment. Thank you.
Mr. O'Connor?
No, sir.
Kelly? Aaron?
I just want to repeat and say thank you to all of our town employees, regardless with Public Works, Police, everyone here that's local, that lives here, knows snow brings visitors, and it's been packed, and it's been sold out, and we have been running full steam. I'm just trying to think of when our town has slowed down. And I agree with Chief, our employees are exhausted regarding, it doesn't matter what department they work in, even the town hall. They're putting in long hours. And so they're to be commended for going the extra mile above and beyond to help service all of our visitors that are coming. I wish there was something we could do to help them, because I know that they are extended as much as they can be. You know, we want snow, and we're this year's making up for all the years we haven't had it, which is great, but it's also taxing. I'm sure Councilman McCarty can tell us, when I go by Brick Oven, there's not a parking space available. And if you look behind him, there's not a parking space all the way up that's not filled. I mean, we're maxed. I don't know what else we could do, so.
What is it, mask to the nose so we don't close?
Bob, on the, like the dispatch and for Preston, have we looked into interns to try to help with some of this stuff?
Well,
We used to have interns.
Yes, interns, Preston brings them in. The COVID pandemic, the college stopped interns. He and I have spoken, and we're still on that track to bring in people in the planning department for interns. In dispatch, it's not available. Dispatchers have to be certified and given security clearance by the state so that they can access personal records, driver's license, and they do that on a daily basis. So I have to have a certified person, and some of our police officers are. They bring police officers into dispatch, but I can't do an intern to answer that question.
Chief, I got a question I meant to ask earlier. Unless, are you finished?
Yeah.
In our charter or in our town ordinance or policies, is there a maximum amount of money that the town manager can spend without authorization of council?
There is. What was it?
Yes, it's in the budget ordinance. I don't know that number.
I think it's around 10 or something. Is that right?
I think it was 10, I think.
It's not statutory. It would be a budgetary issue rather than a statutory issue as far as what's delegated. Generally, once you adopt the budget, that is the instruction to the manager to spend funds in accordance with that budget. As far as discretionary items, that would be up to the budget ordinance.
Thank you.
I guess Steve can answer that question.
Ford did a great job.
You did, huh? Do you agree with or disagree?
I agree.
Okay. All right, I need any more comments? Well, good. Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session.
Second?
So moved.
All approved?
Aye.
Okay. Adjourn the meeting.
Is this one you don't want me out again?
No, you can stay there.
You
Well, I never can tell anymore. I asked Cameron, who put that on there? She said, the mayor.
Okay. Take your pants on.
Riley, are we muted?
I think we're changing the rules. You're out of luck, Larry. You're out of luck.
Good. Can I go on?
No, that's what you're over.
Yes, in about 1 minute.
Takes its time getting in here.
Yep.
I think it's a fashion.
Okay, I need a motion to reconvene our.
Make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. There's an increase in salary to Mr. Bob Putney, our town manager. Would be 2% plus 1% COLA, which is equal to what the rest of the employees on Beach Mountain get. So it puts our town manager in equal footing with the rest of the employees of town manager. I need a motion to
Make a motion.
Second?
accept. All in favor?
Yes, sir.
Aye.
Aye.
Say aye. Okay.
Thank you very much. I think that's very fair. And the employees appreciate that because that's the way it should be. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
All in
Second?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
We gotta get out of here in an hour and 15 minutes.
It was pretty good.
Maybe be my Valentine.
Have to eat this